Good morning, everybody. So, over the weekend, Lady Gaga and a bunch of other friends of hers and celebrities launched a benefit called One World Together at Home, as you can see on your screen here. We're going to break down the symbolism of this event, an event whose sole purpose is to put you back to sleep and to make it appear that they're all in this together with us, when we know that that's simply not the case. None of the talking heads that we see on TV are wearing masks, and every single one of them is breaking the very social distancing rules that they put in place for all of us to follow. So now we know the track record of the elite. They want to whitewash every one of their events with charities and giving. Yet we know that some of the most prolific givers are the most prolific offenders. So let's get into today's show. How did this all start? That's what we're going to start with. Well, several weeks ago, we followed the rabbit hole trail back to a single event which seemed to mark the beginnings of what was going on with this, with the Kuru Sharona, we're going to call it. And it was this December 26th eclipse. It was in the shape of a smiley face. Here it is here. Let's click on this and see what's going on. Now, let's blow this up. This is it here. This was an eclipse that appeared on the 26th, the day after Christmas. And we also documented that on that day was the first day that they actually identified and named the Kuru Sharona. And you can see this eclipse path goes right underneath China. And if you look up here, you can see these two Russian lakes. I think this is in Russia. That look like two eyes of the smiley face. It's right there. Look, I'll turn it sideways so you can see it. Kind of an evil looking smiley face, isn't it? So December 26th seemed to mark the beginning of all this with this eclipse. Now, shortly after that, on February 2nd at the Super Bowl, all of these mysterious smiley faces showed up at the halftime show around Shakira and J-Lo. They were all over the place on their dancers and so on and so forth. And no one really knew what this was all about. It was also on the stage. They had these stage graphics that they were dancing on. And they somehow projected these graphics onto the stage. And it was full of a pit full of smiley faces. Okay. I think all of this was eclipse worship. It was a kind of a ritual. Then, after that, we found lots and lots of predictive programming smiling faces on commercials and films. And that brings us to this weekend where they kicked off the One World Together as one benefit. And Lady Gaga decided to commemorate the event with a song by Charlie Chaplin, who was a known child harmer. The song is called Smile. Now I'm going to flash this here, and then we're going to shut this off because we're not allowed to talk about this on YouTube. But you guys can see what you just saw on the screen. Now, the smiley face goes way, way back. So, the first smiley face, the first indication I got of something going on with this smiley face, you can do this yourself. You open up Google Earth, and there's a little push pin tool, right? You grab the push pin, and then you go like onto Wikipedia, and you type in Obama presidency and scroll, we'll call it, where someone came in and did something at the scroll, right? Type that in, and there should be a list of all of those events that happened under the Obama presidency. And you guys all know what I'm talking about. Then you take your little push pin and you mark on the United States map where all these events happened. And when you're done, I think there was like 50 or 60 of them under the Obama presidency, you turn the entire United States sideways, and lo and behold, the pattern that emerges from all the push pins is a giant smiley face. Now, we covered that several years ago. As I tell you guys, this is not a Trump hate channel. This is an establishment truth channel. We're showing you what the establishment is doing, whether it's right or left. That's the whole point of what we show you, okay? The right-left paradigm. Back then, everybody thought I was losing it. In case you're seeing a smiley face where there is none. I go, no. Look at the map. The nose was formed by Aurora, Colorado. Some events that happened in there. And then the smiley face went along the entire West Coast seaboard. That formed the smiley face. And then the eyes were some events that happened on the East Coast and in Florida. And there it was, the giant smiley face. All these people are working together to control you. Now, I'm pleased to announce that when Pepsi first tweeted out this whole Together at Home campaign in anticipation of all this, they got a lot of backlash. There were a lot of thumbs down, a lot of comments, people saying, oh, this sounds a lot like One World Order. But if you look at Gaga's video here, you can see that there's still quite a few people asleep. I'm going to refresh this because I haven't refreshed it in a while. And if you think about it, I mean, the arrogance of these people to try to influence us what to do with their popularity, but then shut off the dialogue, the two-way dialogue, so that you cannot disagree in any way, shape, or form and have your voice heard. They're using their voice, but not allowing you to use yours. So I just refreshed this. Let's pause it. She's only got 2.1 thousand thumbs down, 48,000 thumbs up. So, a lot of people are still asleep. Now, if you look at this, we're going to kind of pull this video apart. There are some very overt sigils and symbols. In fact, there are some symbols that we just looked at last week in this decode with Eddie Murphy called Imagine That, a film in which there was a magic blanket that he used to summon magic demons to help him with his stock picks. Remember, this is all about the economy right now, right? While they're parading these types of benefits, the economy is slowly crumbling down around us. And then they'll raise it up from the ashes in their new image. But we decoded in that film last week, an obscure film that I just happened to look at and watch. There was this magic blanket with the very same symbols that are on the carpet of Lady Gaga. And those symbols, let me show you those symbols first so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's fast forward to the part where the camera pans around. And on the carpet there, behind her, let's play this. First you see the microphone. Now that is a very overt symbol. Here it is here. This is a variation of the 6-pointed star called the unicursal hexagram, used by Aleister Crowley. Crowley was by most accounts a pretty terrible guy. We all know about Aleister Crowley. This was his symbol. And I know that all microphones or many microphones have this symbol encoded into the microphone. I guess you can call this a holder of some kind. amount, but there is something to this, okay? It's because the voice is a main avenue of deception. And when these talking heads use their voice through this sigil, through this device, they can deceive a lot of people all at one time. So the microphone is very important to these people. Now, if you look down here on the carpet, there's what's called an 8-pointed star. Let me blow this up. All this is sigil magic. Down here on the carpet, you can see this star there. Let's play this through a little bit. There's actually another one back there. See how she moves out of the way of the camera? She wants you to see these stars down here, okay? And this was the very same star that we saw in the film we just decoded on the blanket. I'm going to show that to you as well. This is called an 8-pointed star. Now, some people have dovetailed Ishtar into the meaning of this as well. And that's possible, and we are it is the Easter season. But there's more to it. This is actually thought of as Solomon's ring that could capture demons. So now you understand what was going on with Eddie Murphy and why he used this blanket with the very same symbol on it to talk to these voices that were in his daughter's head. They were demons. You can barely make out. Let's zoom this in a little bit so you guys can see this. It's the very same star. There it is right there. There's another image of it here. I think might be a little bit better. And as you're watching the film, you can actually see it really well. There it is. There's a good image of the 8-pointed star. Okay. So you know I'm not stretching anything or making it up. Now, a simpler variation of this star is the Star of David, they call it. And that is a simpler variation on this exact design. So, if you go on Gaga's video, they showed here, and you'll see that the comments are like disabled. They're not disabled, but there's no comments. So the comments are not allowed. Okay? They haven't turned off the ratings because, you know, they learned their lesson. When Abramovich, which is her, she was the protege of Abramovich, remember? When she tried this, she got shut down. They don't want that to happen again. Because the power that these people have is their popularity. So somehow, I'm sure that YouTube has now disallowed certain dislikes. They'll probably say that the dislikes are inorganic, and therefore they're going to throw them out. Right? Now, what else do we have here? Got some other tabs pulled up for you guys. Now, she chooses the song Smile, as we mentioned a little bit earlier. And we'll get into what that means. But this brick wall in the background is also part of the ritual, because we saw this brick wall in the Super Bowl. It was in the graphics on the stage, and it flashed for about a second. And we saw this brick wall pattern. That's because it's all about the wall that is keeping us all in. And Trump's wall is synonymous with this. Everyone thinks it's going to keep something out, but really it's going to keep us all in. You're not going to be able to get outside the wall unless you take like some kind of a scan or a VC or get your temperature taken, which is what we covered on the show yesterday. Now, there's the brick wall. That was not an accident. We got the symbols on the carpet. And she's singing this song by Charlie Chaplin called Smile. Now, what you didn't know is that Charlie Chaplin was Michael Jackson's favorite. Okay? And here's the song Smile. And it was based on it was actually the soundtrack for Charlie Chaplin's 1936 movie Modern Times. We're going to get into what that means. But if you look at this here, down here, you'll see Michael Jackson with this little boy. And this was one of his favorite songs. Released December 28th, 1997. Smile. So, Chaplin wrote this song for the soundtrack of this film, Modern Times. And guess what? Charlie Chaplin plays a character that gets sick of working inside the machine. Let's look at the plot of this film from February 5th, 1936. So he's employed on this assembly line, and he gets tired of working in the machine. That's all of us. And hey, let's pull this up so you guys can see the plot while I'm going over this. Here it is. Here you go. He gets lost in the machine, and basically his labor is exploited, and he works in this factory. He has a nervous breakdown. He gets lost in the machinery. His body and mind can't keep up with the technology. Does this all starting to sound familiar to you? We talked about this a few weeks ago, about how we're just expected to adjust to this technology, and there was no mechanism in place to help people who didn't come up to speed. Either you were part of the technology, or you were cast aside, or you became some homeless person talking to yourself. They made no allowances for this. It was just forced upon us. It wasn't talked about in the mainstream media at all. Anyway, the plot continues. Chaplin is put in jail. He's accused of being a commie instigator. But then when they go to release him, he begs his captors to let him stay in jail. You can't make this up. And this is the song that Lady Gaga chose. A man who begs to be social distanced and put away on house arrest. This happens not once, but several times in the film, where he tries to do things to get himself put in jail. He feels like this is the only place where he can find any rest. And now this is all starting to sound very familiar to you, because this is what we're going through right now. Now, this film came out 84 years ago. You know, like 1984. And it was set in the Depression. So many comparisons of the Kuru Sharona to the Great Depression that is happening right now. This is all they're talking about. They keep comparing it to that. So Chaplin keeps doing things to get himself put back in jail. And that's what Lady Gaga wants for all of you. She wants us to be happy and smile in our prison. So, that's what I put together for you guys. I'm trying to look at these tabs to see if there's anything else that I wanted to show you. Here's some articles on Gaga. Urges everyone to smile to kick off the One World concert. They're couching this as some kind of optimistic approach, right? That we'll get by. Everything's going to be fine. Just trust them. Unbelievable. Here's the official announcement. Like I said, on Twitter, they heard from people, okay? I was reading the comments, and every single one of them was calling them out for this. But then, of course, they adjust to the dissent. The algorithms adjust to it, and then they can attack the dissent and silence it. And that's how all this works. Now, of course, they've got the caduceus here, right? Because this is the World Health Organization. We've talked at length about what this serpent wrapped around the pole really means, and how they like to fog the waters surrounding this symbol. You guys, this symbol, this caduceus, let's see if we can blow this up so you can see this a little bit better. There we go. Is a loaded symbol. This is not a good symbol, okay? And I've explained this in previous years. We'll do a quick highlight of it. But basically what this is, Jesus compared himself to the serpent that Moses raised up on the pole in the wilderness. He compared himself, but what he was really doing was contrasting himself, because there were two bloodlines. You got to put everything in context when you read the Bible. The caduceus, the serpent wrapped around the pole, it was a bronze serpent, copper, blue bloods. And bronze is 88% copper. And what was happening is that the ancient Hebrews, after they had been delivered from Egypt after the 10 plagues, they were complaining. And they said, we had meat to eat when we were in Egypt. We had 3 square meals a day. Everything was great in Egypt. Why have you taken us out here into the wilderness? And they were murmuring against the Most High. So the Most High sent a punishment and a symbol of what they would go back to if they wanted to. And that was the serpent, the blue blood Egyptians. So he had Moses raise up this copper snake on a pole, and he said, if you stare at it, you can live. It's like taking a dog and rubbing its nose into its own poop, which I would never do to an animal. But I'm trying to give you an example of what God was doing to finally get them to understand where they had been delivered from. This was not a good symbol. But when you read the Bible, if you don't put things into context, you can be deceived. You have to be very careful. But basically, God was like, okay, you want Egypt? Here it is. They were begging to go back. And then he sent these fiery serpents, or bronze serpents, some translations call it, that were attacking them. And they could not survive unless they stared upon the serpent. And that was one of the last times they complained, because then they got it. Do you see how Jesus would never compare himself to that? He was contrasting himself. He was saying, just as Moses raised up a snake in the wilderness, the Son of Man will be raised on a pole, and you will look upon him to be saved. It was a contrasting statement, because Christ was actually from the very bloodline of the Hebrews that were staring upon the serpent. He was from the tribe of Judah. And had they not survived, there would be no Savior born. That's the full story about the serpent raised on a pole. So, that's what's really going on. So this is not a good thing, because think about this. Think about this logically. Use your critical thinking. Jesus was the healer, right? So instead of putting Christ on a pole and using that as their symbol, they're using the blue blood serpent as on the pole, as the healer. Christ's very first miracle, if you look back in the Bible, was that he was in a temple with doctors, and they were fascinated by what he was saying. He was only 12 years old. That number 12 represents the 12 tribes from which he came. 12 years old, he was fascinating the doctors in the temple. What could he possibly have been saying that could fascinate a doctor? Well, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But look at this. They got the hands around this. This reminds me of that nursery rhyme, the Itsy Bitsy Spider up the water spout. It's a very satanic nursery rhyme. And this is the position that you put your hands in to do that nursery rhyme. This also reminds me of a wrench. And this edge here would be the hexagon edge of a hexagon, but then they complete it with just a simple pentagon, right? And so you've got both in here, and they're going to wrench their way through this. They're going to change something fundamentally. This is what this image is telling me. home, together at home. We talk so much about how important a home address is to the New World Order and control. They have to have your home address in order to send fines and bills and all these things. Home address is required. And that will translate into an internet address or an IP address soon. That will be linked into your identity. So this word home is a very important word to these people in terms of global control. The headdress of the Sphinx, ancient Egypt, postmarks, marks on the post. The only way to escape the angel of death was to have the posts of your door marked with the blood of the Lamb. This was the very last plague in Egypt. And this is why the song, I See a Red Door and I Want to Paint It Black, is so dark. Because the red door was supposed to free you from the angel of death. Painting it black would then put you back in the club to where your firstborn would be lost to the angel of death. You see? See how all this fits together? And here is the red door, and they're painting it black. They're surrounding it with black. The black is encroaching in onto the red door. This is the postmark with the blood of the Lamb, but we don't have to do that anymore. We don't have to paint our doors red anymore. Why? Because Jesus was the final Lamb of God. And now all you have to do is believe. There is no sacrificial system anymore. You just believe, and you're saved. You're passed over by the angel of death. Notice the word postmarked is used in mailing, U.S. mailing. There's a reason for that. And there was a reason why the U.S. Postmaster is the highest paid government official underneath the president. Oh, look at what we have here. We found something as I'm staring at this image. Look inside the A. There's a little pyramid with an all-seeing eye on top. That's not a normal A font. That was put in there. Sneaky little devils, aren't they? Interesting. So, they're trying to surround us with the black paint. I see a red door and I want to paint it black. This, of course, is a Pepsi campaign. All of us home together. And during the Super Bowl, they had another Pepsi Zero campaign. And they sang the song, I See a Red Door and I Want to Paint It Black. Missy Elliott and H.E.R. Her. Me and her. See? So, glad we took a closer look at that. Let's go in the chat. We'll be live tomorrow. There are some states that are standing strong against what's happening. Even though their schools are still closed, they have not closed businesses. And we're going to go over that, I think, tomorrow or the day after. Got a couple live shows scheduled after this one. Appreciate everybody coming out this morning for this live show. Let's go in the chat for a little bit. Now, someone was telling me that there was, they were saying follow the money. They're like, hey, Casey, look at the plexiglass. It was weird. Just like one day, we all woke up, we went to the grocery store, and every single grocery store we went to had stickers on the ground and plexiglass. It all happened in like one day. You guys remember when this happened? And no matter what store you went to, it was like they all ordered all at the same time from some manufacturer this perfectly cut plexiglass that seemed to be already pre-planned. There was no announcement in the news. They just said, yeah, there'll be plexiglass, but they didn't say where this came from. And so there's something going on with that. So I tried to follow the money on the plexiglass, but I need your help, of course. So I need you guys to look into the plexiglass, where it's all coming from, I mean, if you're in your grocery store, you might even ask the general manager if they know where they got this plexiglass and see if there's a link. Who's making money off of all this? This is what you need to ask yourself. Now, we did this with the toilet paper gate, and found out that the Koch family, who were, people argue that they're not friends of Trump, but I think that's all smoke and mirrors, because a third of Trump's cabinet are Koch brothers sympathizers. So how can Trump allow that to happen? The Koch brothers, who he claims to have a vendetta with. Well, because it's all WWE. It's fake. They have to pretend like they're opposed to certain people. So we found out that now, yeah, there's no toilet paper in the grocery stores, but people still have to use toilet paper, right? Where are they getting their toilet paper? They're ordering it online. So the Koch brothers are still making their money. Not only are they making their money, Amazon's got their fingers in it too, because they're making money on the delivery of your toilet paper through Amazon. Do you see how all this fits together? You got to follow the money. So you're forced to order your toilet paper through Amazon, and you're still buying Koch brothers toilet paper. That's the point to all this. People are like, wow, how are the Koch brothers making money if there's no toilet paper being sold? Toilet paper is being sold. It's just not being sold through the regular avenues. In fact, you're probably paying a bit of a premium through Amazon. You're paying a lot more for your toilet paper than you normally would. So who's making money here? The Koch brothers and Amazon. So, people will jump through hoops to make excuses for what's happening. There are no excuses. The bottom line is we're all trapped in our houses with no toilet paper. And they're not, that's the bottom line. I don't care what the talking heads say. Till life goes back to normal, there's really nothing that can be done. Someone says my mic's going in and out. I don't know why that would be happening. All right. Back in the chat. Never accept their mark. Absolutely. I agree 100%. Yeah, all the talking heads support this, Katie. All of them support it. Because that's what this is all about. This is what they are. They're the Pied Pipers of our reality. They get behind their mics and they show some talent, which is why they were chosen, because they have some kind of a talent that draws people into what they're saying. And then their whole career is basically political statements that help guide the agenda. That's all they are when you get to the top. And anyone that gets through the glass ceiling, that's exactly what they are. They won't even let you run for president if you do not meet the criteria. But yet here we are in the truth community, and there's still lots of people believing the plan and believing what's happening. It's like we forgot everything we learned up to this point. Yeah, there's a fake vendetta of Trump versus Bezos, right? Why? Because Trump awarded this new contract to help basically upload the military to the cloud. We covered this in a previous video on the other channel. He awarded it to Microsoft. Yes. Microsoft. Now, many of you might not have heard this news yet, because not a lot of channels are covering it. I don't know why they're not covering it. We did a full expose on it. But basically, there's this big scandal because Trump basically took this contract away from Amazon and Bezos, who had the contract to basically upgrade the military to this cloud to make it secure. This would enable AI to be more efficient and effective. It was necessary. We also showed you how 5G Whiz played into that, because by their own admission, the military said that this Jedi contract, they call it, relied on 5G Whiz technology in order to work. So there you go. I hope more channels cover this information. I think, let's see, a couple channels I think could do a good job on that are like Face Like the Sun and maybe Truth Stream Media. You guys go to all those channels. put something in their comments. Say, hey, Enter the Stars was talking about this Jedi contract and the military uploading everything to the cloud, and that this was 5G whiz dependent, and this was going to basically fast track the military into artificial intelligence. And this is right down their alley. So with just a little bit of research, they'll be able to find out what is going on with that. Put together probably a much better video than I could on it. So I think our skill here on this channel is digging up stuff and getting like the basic framework of what's going on. But I'm not going to sit here and claim I'm the best researcher on YouTube. I'm just not. We just find stuff that other people don't find. That's why we all got to work together, right? All right. I guess some people are the Z word. Yeah, that can happen. So you got to be careful. By the way, that wasn't a blanket endorsement of those channels. I'm just saying that they do some good work on certain things. So Jedi. All right, we're gonna leave the show at that, just because we're gonna be here every day of the week this week with new stuff. I appreciate everyone coming out. Have a great day, everyone. Take care and be safe.